sort of emerging from that place.
Well, it's a shame because both believe in the same God, right? There's just a few details that they squabble about. It's
It's
a shame.
almost like it's been sort of intentionally done though over generations. It's just very hard to get your mind around. You think everything's organic. It's not. The CIA, they took over the British took over the Ottoman Empire in order to create the Israel, to sort of like carve up the Middle East in such a way that none of the people there could get themselves organized in order to control the power. And then they installed their own despotic leaders.
Exactly.
Sort of this has been going for a very long time.
I love history, and if you could look at it that way, but it's also, if you look at construct of the editions of the Quran, where they came from, that and the use of the French, the eradication of that, the division of Arabia, the definition of Arabia, how the education systems in different parts of what we called Arabia was given and indoctrinated by the French and the British. You could look at all of that part of history of how the system of control set up how the Muslim world would be and what it was going to be. So when we look at this and we critique Islam, it's fine. Yeah? We don't critique the people, but if we're going to critique what is a certain doctrine, a different ideology to our Western ideas, where did it come from? It was born from the British and the French, because it's those guys, yeah, that set everything up, that define all. Why is there a reason that there's Kurds in Turkey, Kurds in Iran? Because the nations that exist aren't anything to do with the regions of the people that existed there. It's how us colonialists divided them up. And when we look at the problems we've got to deal with, it's not just, there's Kurds living in southern Turkey and northern Iraq. It's how much did we fuck up the ideology of these people that are now wanting to change us? Because these people think they're righteous. They're helping us. Nobody's evil in any way, yeah?
No, there might be a couple.
Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, there's lots of evil people that will ascribe to a thing. But most people that you meet are genuine, whichever religion they ascribe to. They believe in a creator, yeah, and they want peace and love. It's just, and Christians should be the most aware of this. It's just how our scripture can be perverted to give us different ideologies from the same words in front of us. We should all be wary of how we can get mugged off. Doesn't matter what religion we are. Now, that's not to say one particular ideology is useful in a very different society, and how it will never work without, as Enoch Powell described, rivers of blood. And once you've had the rivers of blood, you may then set up a different ideology that people ascribe to. It'll be nothing like the one that caused the rivers of blood, except that. But that is history, certainly European history. Europe's got to decide whether or not they want that. And they're at the point of having to decide whether or not they have to make sure that Islamic ideology is removed from any segment of the law and is actually precluded from the law, and made sure that Christian fundamentals remain true in European law and the theology of their governments, or whether they merge to a new woke future. That's the choice Europe's at right now. America's made their choice. I think it's quite clear. But Europe's at that crossroads. Don't know which way it'll go.
I couldn't have said it any better. You're right at that crossroads. Exactly that. And whether you like it or not, Europe is either going to be Christian or it's going to be Muslim. Whether you, and I'm glad you said about history, Adam, because Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin drew those lines there. That's what Adam was talking about. And whether we like it or not, that area has been fought for thousands of years. The Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire, they do not forget. Europe is either going to be Christian or they're going to take over. This is our last chance. This is the last generation.
The trouble with Islamic ideology, as I understand it, is that once a land is Islamic, then forever, from a theological point of view, it should be Islamic, and it's incumbent upon any good Muslim to make sure it does. So if we look at things like the Ottoman Empire and history, we can see that actually there was a huge Muslim invasion into southern parts of Germany, Austria. So from any genuine, if you was to take an Islamic point of view, historical point of view, and use Quran as your point for validation, which is a perfectly reasonable point to take, just like any Jew would, to claim Israel was why they should be there, then they would say from their scripture that therefore the southern part of Germany, Austria, once was occupied, and they can demonstrate through archaeology through the Ottoman Empire, then that was at one point even with Arabic writing on coins and stuff in that area. That by their theology, then ultimately it should once again be recaptured into this Fourth Reich, for want of a better taste analogy. But that's the ultimate thing, the birth of the new Reich within Islam. Any land that has been once Islamic should once again be Islamic. This is another warning to Europe, particularly southern Spain. Look at the history of Europe. Well, within, and this isn't like a call for jihad, it's just a basic ideology of Islam, and it's not a critique of it, it's just recognise the fact. They were once Islamic lands, and by any doctrine of Islam, Jin, you're here, you're a Muslim. By any recognition of Muslim doctrine, once it's an Islamic land, it should come back to be. It's been already declared by God, yeah, Muslim. So it's not to say a Muslim needs to, well, it's definitely, but that you have to then go and take new lands. Anything that once was Muslim should once again become Muslim. Is that, Jin, are you there? Would you agree with that in terms of like hadith text?
Yeah, I would agree with what you said there, Brian. Yeah.
Adam, you bugger,
Adam,
you, you sod,
Adam,
you Brian me.
Adam, yeah, I always get you. I always do that. Sorry. Yeah, but Adam, yeah. Yeah, I would agree with what you said there. I mean, if it was once Muslim land, it should return back to Muslim land, obviously. I mean, what's the problem with that? I don't see a problem. But it is kind of difficult as well, because it means you've got to start killing people to reclaim it. I mean, if it was taken by force, you know, do we need to use force to take it back? Obviously, try the amicable way first. If not, then you have to use force. I will always go for the amicable. The man, look, whoever's taken the land, can you not return it? It belongs to us. Peaceful means first. If not, then you've got to take it by force because it's yours. Do you know what I mean? Is that fair?
Well, that sounds fair. Sure.
From
there you go,
Islamic
the religion.
Religious point of view, just as much as I would like to spread the gospel of Christ to people, now I, as a spreader of the gospel of Christ, I couldn't use that methodology, but within Islam, then that's reasonable. Now, that's not to say, look, Jin, that's not how Bradford was taken. Nobody used force to take Bradford. Yeah? You get me? No force has been used for the Islamification of the North Yorkshire. Yeah, the people there.
Yeah. It was given, wasn't it? It was given, wasn't it? It was given, maybe without consulting other people, perhaps, but it wasn't force. I agreed. Yeah.
No violence, but the councils are Muslim. The councils are Muslim. Everybody's Muslim. The MP is Muslim, right? Now, the question is, and this is the question for Europe: what the fuck do we do with that? Now, in a democracy, we're now at a point where we've got an area, yeah, that's got 50,000, 100,000 people, and all of them, the majority of them, are Muslim. So by our own standards, what do we do with that knowledge that these people want to be governed by these rules, even though these rules are not commensurate with the Christian values and laws of which people came here and then changed to this religion? So Western society's got to decide what the fuck it does with that knowledge, that we've got lots of people that used to be what would be called Christian, but actually nobody's Christian anymore in the West. Except a silent majority. Nobody rocks up to churches, but lots of people rock up to mosques, and lots of people vote for people who are outspokenly Muslim on that thing, and they're in power. So what does the West do with that? That's, like I say, it's not for me to say what we'll do with it, but that's the question that's being put to Europe, Jen. And Bradford's a great example, right? If it was the Republic of Bradistan, right, then we'd know what the laws are. But Bradistan doesn't exist, but yet there is this majority of people that would like to be governed by different laws than the land in which they live in. That's in democracy.
Yeah, well, my position would be that if the Muslims want to live in England, you know, England being a Christian country first and foremost, they have to bear that in mind, that they've been given some area where they can worship God in the way they want to worship. That's fine. But when it starts to infringe and cause conflict, they can easily be ejected back to the Muslim country they come from and go and do it over there. That's all I think. That's fair for me.
No, but that's very Trumpian, but that's not the reality of the Britain we live in. If I go to Bradford today, I love the high school, I can't even, if I kicked out everybody that was of Pakistani heritage, there'd be nobody in fucking Bradford left, mate, except a couple of old white blokes, yeah, and a dog, right? So the reality, it's not the world we live in, but yet in Bradford, we've got a huge population that would not like to be governed by the laws of their land. They would like to adopt a Sharia type set of laws for them to be governed by. And what they're going to do over the next 20 or 30 years from today is politically and correctly, by the standards of my British standards, which is to do it democratically, which is why we are where we are today, is appeal to change that the laws of this land shouldn't no longer be based on Christian morals, yeah, Look at the king. He's already coming out. We all know he's Muslim, yeah? Which means he shouldn't be king.
Hold on, Adam. Hold on. Is that true, bro? Because I read that the king converted to Muslim. Are you confirming that?
I can't confirm that. I'm not him. I can't say I'm a Muslim. There's lots of rumours, but there's a very big question with regards to treason. If you were to look at a monarch, what's he there for? Particularly in the role that he's presented in this democracy that we have. He's a head of state. What's he a head of? He's a head of two things, yeah? The people and the church. Now, if the head of the church isn't a Christian, right, he shouldn't be king, sadly. Now, that's not to indict him, but he himself should know that if he's a good Muslim, he can't stand in front of the people and say, I'm a Christian, whilst in front of his God, say, I'm a Muslim. And Jin would agree with that. So as king, he should resign, as any honourable man, right? But this is the problem with modern Britain, that it needs resolving. It's not to say it needs resolving one way or the other, but it's at the crossroads that modern Britain is at.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And now hearing rumors of the king converting to Muslim, I mean, it's the end of a great people. I mean, you're not perfect. You've harmed a lot of people, but so has any other race. All races have blood on their hands, and I would hate to see a great race such as Britain go under, man. I would cry for it. I swear.
It's very
The
political.
Habsburgs have a bloodline to Muhammad. It's not. This was part of the. This is the part of the Charlie line, and part of the end of it, and part of the bastard line with Diana, yeah, with the ginger git that's married to the black chick in America. So all that kind of stuff, is part of bloodlines. Look at the game that plays out there. But if you look at it, people will recognise that Queen Elizabeth was linked to the Prophet Muhammad. My claim.
What? How?
It's a
I'm
Saudi.
sure that's news to a lot of people.
Well, it might be, but
She
that's
shut
old
him up.
school news. But it's a Saudi claim. You know, it's just a fact. It's out there. This is part of the game. I can't tell you what the full soap opera is, but you can see a script when you see it. You see people of certain denominations taking certain signs and symbols. It's all a game.
Well, if all these converts to Muslim, then that would explain all this influx in your country. But then again, it's happening in France. It's happening in Belgium. It appears they're attacking the northern, the whitest of the white countries, the Christians. Surely you heard of the rape gangs, and you heard of that Dutch lady that addressed the European Parliament and said what state her country's in. And you must have heard her. I forgot her name. This beautiful blonde Dutch girl. See if I can find the video. It's like heartbreaking just to hear her talk. Like,
this is part of the rewriting of rhetoric in the UK. So to suggest that rape gangs of young boys and girls in the UK has got anything to do with Pakistanis is naive. Part of the institutional control and power systems is that exactly that throughout the care system. What came out through what you'll have seen in terms of the Muslim rape gangs and stuff is what Pakistanis always do, is they get onto a good thing and they fucking milk it until they get caught out doing it. Yeah, it's kind of, that's racist from me. I mean, it's true. If you want to take, anything racist from me, that's the statement. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's child sexual abuse, a milk round, or a pharmacy. Pakistanis will take every single nuance and take it to the limit and keep going until they get told off. Because that's what they were taught to do through empire. That's how they behave. That's how they work at home. Absolutely fine. Because they're not, But that's the trouble when you involve that kind of mentality, then with an institutionalized paedophilia network of power. You get caught out, don't you? Because people get too big for their boots and think they can rape anyone, anywhere. Unlike the control network, which has been surreptitiously raping lots of people everywhere, but in a very methodical manner. Yeah, something I can attest to. That's the difference. This is the breakdown of the power systems as you see it. Yeah, this is why we've got a chance, if you ask me, because these systems break down. They're disparate now. They're not in unison. So in the 70s, you get all this going off in the kids' home down the road from me. Me seeing kids jump off of roofs and finding out the reason these kids jumped off of roofs was because the girls that lived there, hadn't agreed to wank off or take sex from some of the guys that were in these kids' homes. So they were forced off the roof. So the next couple of days, the girls did do that because the young boys they were living with would get the same threat. This is what happened in Britain. Britain's a filthy fucking country. It's not just brown people that are filthy in it. Jimmy fucking Savile, mate. It's very easy for all of us to think all of our problems are due to one different group. That's how Hitler worked. Why I alluded to National Socialism earlier. Nothing wrong with National Socialism. Don't put your fucking problems on one group, be it Muslims, brown people, Jews. It doesn't matter, does it? So can you do that? You stop dealing with your problems and you think you'll fix them by beating the shit out of somebody else. When you lose and you give the power back to them. Oh, that was a rant. Sorry about it, gents.
No, that was good. I'm glad to hear somebody down there in Europe passionate and awoke to what's going on. And yeah, I mean, we can debate what the problem is, who the problem is, who started the problem. As long as we realize that there is a problem, I think that's the first start. The way to begin, the first step of 1,000 miles.
It's not just a Europe problem though. So I've got a lady from Ghana, and I know I have lots of. I mentioned like Central Africa, the Gold Coast, that kind of area, Nigeria, Ghana, all around there. So there's lots of. Compared to when I was a kid, when I grew up, there was only Caribbean blacks. There's not so many Caribbeans anymore. A huge amount of the black population, certainly in Nottingham, are from that part of Africa. And I tell you what, it's just a bit like when if you listen to people from India and Pakistanis talking about each other, an Indian will happily call the person a Paki. Something a white person would never use because you'd be called racist. But what's interesting is to listen in terms of the religious dialect, in terms of Central Africans discuss Islam. It's wow. It's beyond any Anglican theology of kind of critique that you would ever hear.
Yeah, you know what's funny about it? Well, not funny. The sad part of it is they're the same people. The Pakistanis and the Indians are literally the same people. The only thing that separates them is religion. That's it. They are identical. It's like talking about British from the north and British from the central London. Same thing. Exact same thing.
The point I'm saying is, so you then take the Central Africans that are now in Britain and you listen to them critique Islam and how Muslims behave in the country. That is where you hear real racism. If you want to listen to that, yeah, and I hear it, yeah. It's not racism. It's social commentary. Yeah, it's these people that have moved from over here going, well, we've moved over here and we behave like this because actually this is the reason we behaved over here. We look at these people and they behave like this, and they're actually asking you to behave like this, which isn't the reason we moved over here. That's the social commentary. It's very telling, and that's why I say we're at a crossroads. I can't demand, you know what I mean? It doesn't. I'm fucking off to Italy, mate. Yeah, when I retire, whatever happens in Britain, oh God bless. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think the imams in Islam, in the religion, are also have to do a little bit more work in trying to get the two factions of Islam to work together, because there's only one judge, and that's God at the end of the day, not us. So we've got to be able to just put our best foot forward, and the imams should be working towards that to get them to work together. You know, they're failing in their responsibility there. That's what's going wrong there. They've got to remind themselves who they are, who the one judge is. That's God, and get on with doing your religion the way you want to do it. Don't be looking at someone else's religion and saying they're wrong. That's not your position to say that. As long as that religion is not infringing on your freedom to do what you got to do, just get on with it and let everybody see what you can do. And then that's it. And then God's going to judge you when you die and you go and meet God. That's when you explain yourself. Outside of that, stop all this finger pointing. That's what the imams should be promoting. But they're not doing that well enough as far as I'm concerned.
The girl that I was talking about, the Dutch girl, is that Jim just posted at 6 past the hour. Listen to that speech and that says it all, man. Replacement theory.
Is it the Virgil? Oh, where is it in? I mean, look, I know what you mean. It's that hot blonde chick that's.
Yeah. Live stream text one.
Live stream.
Her name is Eva Vlar.
Eva, that's it. Yeah, Eva. Whatever it was. Yeah. And that's kind of the antithesis of the problem, or to the extreme, the way she is. I know who she is. Yeah. But ultimately, she's kind of right. Yeah. I'm mentioning Ghanaians, right? And if Ghanaians, right, were suddenly placed with a point where, for the past 20 years, 20% of their population had been replaced by white people, just really white people, right? So just like Britain was in the late 60s, 20% by the 80s, yeah, they're not native, right? Then what happens is that Nigeria let in 2,000 people a week for 15 years. And it's not that they're not white, because they're white Christian, which is what happened in Europe, in Britain. Then suddenly, these 2,000 a week people coming illegally over the borders, and you're putting them up in all the travel lodges, yeah, and places. On top of, and they've got a different religion. Doesn't matter what religion it is. How would any society react to that? Now, 10 years later, it's still there, and people are still coming in, right? Now, these people of a different religion and theology are actually in control of local councils, and they're pressuring the system to change the theology that controls the country. And this level of pressure is still from a minority of 20%. How would anybody else from any other country deal with that as in terms of political disruption? And we're British, so we look at it and say, well, this is a consequence. This is just a consequence of colonialism, which I'm fine with. Absolutely fine. It is. It's where we are fucking today. Whatever you want to call colonialism, it's where we are today. But how should it be dealt with for the majority of people? What steps should be taken to ensure that the majority today are in the same country today that there will be in 20 years' time? Or should we ask the country today, do you want it just to continue developing, knowing you're going to change, knowing that actually after the past 40 years, you've seen a change? Yeah? Because back in the day, we used to have honest, simple symbols in our bed and breakfast, right? Or our travel lodges, as they're called today. Wouldn't like they'd be full of Eastern Europeans or people claiming they're from Afghanistan that have come from war-torn France on a boat to get into our travel lodges. Yeah, we'd have simple signs saying no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs. We're being painted as that kind of basic racist day, that we're saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs in our. It's not the case. We're at a crossroads where our society is changing, and the British people need to ask themselves, what do they want? I'm fucking off. I'm gone. This country's fucked. Yeah. I hope what's left is a Christian country, because I think in 20 years' time, realistically, if you look at what's happening in Britain, there will be a larger Muslim population in this country, yeah, by just the number of people here and by their statement of their faith. And when that day comes, you as a Christian today have to ask yourself, do I want to live here? It's a bit like, would I move to Saudi today? I wouldn't, no. Look at me, I've said I'll go to Italy. Where's that? It's really Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but it's a little bit more Christian. And it's not about the famous, it's not about, it's a little bit more white, because actually there's shitloads of Africans and they're all Christian and moving over there. But this is the point of why the reality of the shift of the world you're living in is what's happening now. Jen, you seriously think about it in 20 years' time. What will the people of Bradford want to be governed by? And quite rightly so, by British ideologies, right? If they're all Muslim, then they're going to want that ideology. Just like as a Christian, most of us are supposedly Christian today, we want the laws to reflect our scripture. Well, if most people are of a different scripture, then surely by simple cognizance, the laws are going to need to be changed to reflect that new scripture, aren't they?
Is that put to me?
Yeah, you're a Brit and you're a Muslim.
Yeah.
So if ultimately via British sensibilities, if everybody's Muslim,
yeah,
then the laws should need to be amended to reflect our new sensibilities. Our laws as Brits are based on Protestant ideology, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So if we're no longer a majority Christian Protestant and we're now Muslim, then by British sensibilities, I'd want those fucking laws changing. If I was
I mean that sounds reasonable. It sounds reasonable, but as long as everybody can agree on it, yeah, why not? As long as everybody else agrees on it. I mean, there could be some people who don't want to have that, but if it's the majority and the religion is the majority, then yeah, why not? I don't see a problem there.
That's the cross. Do you agree with the crossroads? That's where Britain's at.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely a crossroads. There's definitely a crossroads. King Charles is an Islamic. So King Charles is a Muslim now. Is that what you're saying, King Charles?
I've seen indictments here and there, and him wearing stuff and putting on. You know what I mean? I mean, I would pay respect and wear a kippah if I was going to a synagogue, and if take my shoes off and behave properly in a mosque. But he's done a little bit more than that in terms of people indicting him. It's not for me to say. I don't give a shit. The only question I think is, you're supposed to be head of my state. As a good man, if I was you, I'd say I can't do this by conscience to God. Because if you're the king, you're saying, I am king and the representative of Christ and his church in Britain. If you're a Muslim, you can't say that. So you're actually being a really bad Muslim if you pretend to your congregation that that's the case. So I don't know. Because he's either a really bad Muslim, a really bad Christian, or just a complete Satanist, which actually is the position that makes only any sense, Jim. You can't be a good Muslim or a bad Muslim or a good Christian or a bad Muslim to hold that position where he's kind of upholding Islam in front of his congregation, which is supposed to be Christians. The only person that could do that is a Satanist. And fuck both of us over. Do you get me?
Yeah, I mean, if he's converted to Islam, then he's leaving Christianity, so he has to step down from being the king. He can't be the king of the Christ and all that. He can't be, because he's not in that religion anymore. So yeah, it's confusing what's going on in Britain. It's confusing. Glad I'm not involved. Glad I'm not involved in that crap. It's all junk. It's just junk. It's absolute crap going on over there. Fucking hell, man. What's happening?
Game of Thrones, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a good one. That is a good one, man. Nice one, Adam. Game of Thrones. Yeah. I mean, you can laugh about it. That's all we can do, really, at this stage, because it is absolutely hideous what's going on over there. What's happening? Oh, boy, I'm glad I'm not there. Fuck, I'll be fighting every day of the week. Terrible.
Look at it everywhere, mate. Look at Ukraine. What the actual fuck?
Yeah.
What's wrong with a good old-fashioned war? I don't know who's died, if anybody's died. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. I'm in your shoes there. Yeah. I'm with you there, mate.
How many people have ruined Belgium during these past few years? If you don't ruin Belgium, it's not a world war, in my opinion.
Oh, just absolute mayhem. Mayhem, mate. I'm glad I'm just not involved. Got to discuss, let alone live through it. Actually live through it. Bloody hell. No thanks.
It's life peaceful in Japan, Jim. Is it just chilled?
I'm chilled, mate. Yeah. Peaceful.
What do the Japs make?
Sunday morning here. Sunday morning here. Sorry?
What do the Japanese? What do the Japs make of all of this, like world politics? I say, I'll look at it.
They're not really aware. Well, with my students, they're not aware of the Charles being a Muslim thing. That wouldn't be a, they take it as they hear it from their Japanese media. They do a lot of believing and not much in-depth research, really. They're not happy with let me explain something quickly. Hang on. There's been a scandal recently that's come up, right? The Prime Minister of Japan had a luncheon, a meal with his colleagues, right, with his ministers. I think there were about 30 of them, and he's given them $600 each as a bonus, right, from taxpayers' money. And the Japanese have protested strongly like that. He should never have done that. Why are they getting a bonus and we don't get a bonus, for example? That was just only last week. Okay, big scandal. Cost $10,000 meal that the Prime Minister himself paid for, right? And Sugiura, I think, Mr. Sugiura paid for it himself, but he gave out $600 to his ministers, as for their efforts in the past few months. And the Japanese people have been happy about that. That's what's concerned them more of recent days. But as for world politics, it goes over their heads, really. They're not really so concerned. Most people are not really concerned about politics in Japan. Only when things like that happen. Misuse of funds gets them really upset. Okay? World
Isn't that
politics,
just like
take it
a
and leave
red
it.
herring?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
That just sounds like they're setting up, though. Like, what is it? $600 and causing such outrage? Something's fishy. That'd be way more corrupt.
$600 each to the ministers. Yeah, but they should never have been getting that money anyway. No. Look, the Japanese housewives and that, they're feeling the pinch here and there. Things have gone up slightly.
Japan was like one of the ones when I think a couple of ministers or something started recognizing the problems with the shots. And don't they have like a culture there where if like you're the CEO of a company or you found to hurt some people or something, they'll go top themselves? So I was kind of like waiting for the moment where you'd find a whole bunch of like pharmaceutical reps in Japan starting to top themselves, but that never came for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there have been some people who have been very vocal against the pharmaceutical industry, right in the government themselves, and they've asked the Prime Minister to look into this together with the public. And like you said, fire those people. Those people should step down, but hasn't happened yet. Yeah, so they're all still waiting. But the dangers have been highlighted, and the Japanese people are now awake to the dangers. Thank God, at last.
Really?
Awake to the dangers. Yeah. Well, it's taken a long while, though. Many people have died. Many people have died over here because of that, the shots and that, and it's scared them to get their Prime Minister to look into it. So there's been a lot of people, and the fact that this knowledge was known to the pharmaceutical industry in Japan here, why didn't they warn people better? And they didn't. They didn't warn the public. You know, got them upset. This £600, this $600, still money. If they don't deserve to get the money, they should remember it's the taxpayer that's paying for it. And they say, why are you giving them $600? What for? What did they do to deserve it? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, to me, it seems like a setup. It's sort of look how much outrage is caused by just $600. Imagine if we actually did give you a poisonous shot, how much outrage there is. Oh, we didn't give you a poisonous shot because well, we haven't seen the outrage, because you know we'd get outraged because of $600. You get what I'm coming from?
Yeah, I see what you mean, but it's a separate issue, isn't it? The bonus that they got wasn't because of vaccines or anything. I don't know what the Prime Minister was thinking, but he made a mistake there. The public are in uproar. They're totally upset that these individuals, these ministers, have got money. And what did they get the money for was the question. For their hard work over the 6 months or something silly like this. And it was wrong. And the Prime Minister did apologise by saying that, sorry that I was out of step with public feeling and opinion. But he didn't return the money, though. The money's gone. It hasn't been returned. If you're sorry, then you'd return the money, obviously. If you're truly sorry, you'd say, okay, all the money back. Instantly.
How much is $600 worth in Japan? Is that like 6 million or something? Like,
well, you see, it's the principle, though. It doesn't matter. It could have been $50. It's the principle, isn't it? They're getting money for nothing. Okay, you've got to remember that. Okay, this is Japan as it is. That's what got them upset. They have a right to be upset. They're getting money for nothing, and they're paying for it. Whilst they're feeling the pinch, right? They're feeling the pinch in their daily budget. Their daily budget, okay, for their lives. People are getting free money. It's wrong, okay.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Like, if I found out that my government had convinced me to
30 times 600. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, if I found out the government had put poison in me, compared to handing out $600, you know, like there would the levels of outrage that I would feel would be exponential compared to $600.
Yeah. Yes, I see what you're putting forward, but they were upset with that. They've been upset with the government with the vaccines as well, because they have been protesting strongly against that and demanding that the government look into it because people are dying. So the outrage is there for that. But this is the most recent outrage, only last week. Yet another scandal, you know. That's all. Yeah, go ahead.
Just what? If I was a Japanese politician, the last thing I'd do is admit complicity and give 600 quid back. If I took £2.3 million, I might struggle to give that back. Just go, oh, sorry about that. The next point, Jin, if a COVID-2 vaccine came out in Japan tomorrow, how many people would say fuck off?
That's where you campaigned, right?
Yeah, I would say about maybe 90% of the population would say now, yeah, they're awake. And only 10% uptake, or maybe let's say 20%. Let's give it a bit more. Yeah, 20% uptake would be the percentage that I would predict that would take it. This is after 77 roughly percent took it here in Japan from the previous. But then since then, they've woken up because people have died across Japan. Right?
Japan was one of the countries that protested when the WHO tried to invoke that they needed the rules to be able to say everybody needs this jab at this point if we declare a world pandemic of this. And it was I think it was Japanese and a number of people like in the Far East that protested against this WHO. Australia, I think, was one of them as well, but that protested against this demand from the WHO. You guys, I say the levels of understanding seemed they're the same, but at different levels in different areas across the plane.
Yeah, let me explain what happened. But basically, the Japanese fell foul to the rules that if you're employed and your employer asks you to take it, you got to take it or you lose your job. So they were coerced. That's why the number went up to 77% roughly. Okay, right? So most people had to take it because they didn't want to lose their livelihoods. Okay, that's what happened there. But like you just asked, that question you just asked now, I reckon 80% would say no. Only 20% would be the uptake. Possibly, it could be less. It could only be 10%. But I don't think many people are going to be taking it now, especially as 4 years has gone by now. We're into the 4th year, let's say, and many people have died over the years, and people are seeing it now to the point where they've asked the Prime Minister to look into it because they want to know that what they took is not going to kill them. So there you are.
I'd agree with that. I think in the UK, 80 is about right. America out there, what percentage would you say? If COVID-2 came out tomorrow and you saw Chinese people dying in the streets, having to be put in the back of a van in bin bags, and the only thing you could do to save your life was have another vaccine, how many percentage of Americans will go, fuck off?
Yeah, what would that be in the United States?
I've just realised. Jane, I've upset SE Montreal. Americans and Canadians. Is that better?
Just say North Americans. That would be good.
North America. How many people outside of Asia and Europe? I should probably say.
Yeah, North Americans. I mean, that covers
Oh
both
yeah,
of them anyway.
C150.
But yeah, no one's commenting on that, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I would be interested to know that.
I think they'd be higher. All of like North America.
I don't know. I reckon it'd be near the 50%, if anything. I think it'd be 50-50 there, because I think there's that kind of divide there exists with that COVID thing. Could be 60-40, where 60% don't take it, 40% may take it. There might be a 40% uptake in that, perhaps. But again, I could be wrong, because people are asking questions in the United States as well. You know, there's been a lot of anti-vaccine sentiment. It's increased. Robert F. Kennedy being in his position that he's in now, right? I reckon it may only be a 30% uptake. Could be just guessing here.
So, I mean, those bosses that force their employees to take the poisonous shot, once they recognize what they were forcing them to do, like, why isn't the suicide forest just filled up with people yet? Like, I don't know, is it not as, that samurai sentiment of, that I've been told about in Japan? Maybe it's not as true.
Yeah, things have changed somewhat since then. Yeah, they're not so quick, especially as they're younger than the older ones. They're not carrying that bushido, that type of thinking now. No, they're not going to go and kill themselves.
I just say, oops, like the West does. Great.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening there. Oops, sorry about that, and everybody move on. You know, unless they're asking for compensation and things like that now, which is why the public here in Japan are concerned, because if there's injuries coming, they want their compensation, of course.
Yeah, that $600 would be nothing on the compensation that would be necessary to overcome the damage that was done. Not that you can really truly compensate it, but yeah.
Absolutely right. But but this is why, you see, look, this is why, because they know that the government's not doing its job properly. They're going to scrutinize every penny that they're giving out for free money. That's it. I'm glad that they made a noise, just because it's only $600 each, right? I think there was 30 ministers there. So, you know, they're getting money for what? What did they do? Especially for what's
That's
going
what I mean.
on.
It seems like it's confected. That's why I'm sitting here thinking that it looks like they're trying to put on a show that they're accountable. Yet, you know, the real deviant act has already happened, and like afterwards you say, oh, look how good I am. I reprimand myself for like a $600 wasteful sort of thing, but it's just nonsense. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if I understood you right there. Remember, it was the public that complained that they shouldn't have got that money, and that money wasn't returned back to the taxpayer. So the Japanese citizen is the taxpayer still very upset because the money wasn't returned back to the taxpayer. And the Prime Minister apologizes for being out of step with the Japanese sentiment and feelings and that. Well, if you are that upset and if you are apologizing for that mistake, then return the money back to the taxpayer. What are you giving that money to them for? It's not going to look well on Mr. Keep forgetting his name. They've had so many fucking prime ministers of late. Can't remember the name of this one. I think it's Sugiura, Mr. Something. And not Noriyuki. I'll look him up later, but yeah.
Have you guys heard about the whole hoo-ha with that game company because of Assassin's Creed?
Yeah, it's my.
Yes, okay, yeah.
It's my humiliation ritual. Yeah, they're besmirching my name. Essentially, it is taking my name but without the H, taking a Japanese feudal aesthetic for Assassin's Creed, which would have been like the most requested thing in gaming, essentially, because it's taking something that's really cool, Assassins, and then putting it into something that would be very appropriate and also cool, which is feudal Japan. And then instead of just making a normal protagonist, they make it a black guy who is like technically part of history, but is probably fake anyway. And then they also gave scenes where he is essentially having gay love scenes with a non-binary person. And yeah, a whole bunch of things about like they're making basic errors with understanding Japanese culture. So they're like, you know, allowing you to break things that you shouldn't be able to break. And,
like the shrine. Yeah.
And also, if you look at the credits in Assassin's Creed, the new one is 2 hours long. The end credit sequence, and like 90% of the names are Indian.
Credits, that's how can you have credits that's 2 hours long? What are we living in? What the hell? That's a joke, isn't it? That's
when you constantly outsource things, it only makes sense.
Wow, can't believe that. Yeah, the Prime Minister is Shigeru Ichiba Shigeru. That's his name. I looked it up just now because I forgot. I was saying Sugiura, but that's someone else. That was a Japanese cancer researcher, Kanematsu Sugiura, who discovered that lateral and amygdalin can slow down the cancer, spread of cancer, and that. He was proving it to be successful. But that was Sugiura. That's why his name came up. But it's Ichiba, Shigeru Ichiba. That's the guy we're talking about, the Prime Minister of Japan. He apologized for being out of step with the Japanese people. He didn't return the money. So if you acknowledge you're out of step, then you say, okay, return all money back. What's going on here? And the ministers themselves should return the money if they've got any honor, but they don't seem to have it. Clearly, you can see that now. I know one thing, if I was the Prime Minister of Japan, I wouldn't take a single yen until targets have been reached, so they can't even begin to complain. You know, I'm not getting any money, I'm still working for you, okay? When we get to the target, you can give me my money. Until then, let me finish the job, thanks. Yeah, no one can complain that I'm receiving money. Job done, afterwards. There you go, that's how I operate.
By the sounds of that, Jin, your politicians are just as suspiciously bent as everybody else's.
Not really, because I'm not taking the taxpayers' money, and I'm ensuring that whatever their needs are being met first and foremost. We're working on that. That's it. So I won't take a penny. What would I take a penny for?
I'd say you.
See, that way, that shows good faith.
Your politicians, not you.
Yeah, it's talking about your dodgy,
Oh, right.
your dodgy prime minister taking extra expenses that you don't need. You know, they're dodgy
Yeah.
everywhere.
They're dodgy everywhere. Exactly that. Yeah, I wouldn't be using a brand new car as well. Second-hand car would be good enough. Doesn't have to be a brand new one. You're going to A to B here. That's what I mean. You know, they do a lot of shitty stuff that's just silly. You know, proof is in the pudding.
That's a phrase. Proof is in the pudding, son.
Yeah.
I'd still just like to point out that America is #1 when it comes to corruption. So
What are we talking about? It's other countries been corrupt before America was even a country.
we take it to the next level, though, bro. We're on a whole nother level of corruption here.
No, bro, because we were so corrupt, we made your country, innit? And then we corrupted that on top of our own corruption, innit?
Done though.
Dude, they tried to sell Obama's Senate seat when he went into office with the presidency, bro. That's ancient Rome levels of corruption.
The trouble with American corruption is it's really crap. So after all these years of slavery and crying slavery, and you elect a black guy who makes it more racist, your country. And it's kind of obvious the level of political corruption over there. That's why Americans, as dumb as they are, could actually vote for Trump. Yeah, because it's so dumbed down, the level of vote this way, that way. Yeah, it's over here. It's more subtle. It's not any compliment to us, yeah. But the level of nuance of how they try to persuade you with public opinion to vote, as we've just said, Islamism, all this shit, or if it's just basic transsexual, what the fuck woke politics shit that got Trump elected. All of it,
yeah, it's a lot more
genuinely, all of it is so obvious a Orwellian control system for anybody of any intellect. You can see. If I was in control, how would I get everybody to vote for Trump? What I'd do is put Biden in charge, show he's got apparently dementia, put Kamala in, run them for 4 years. So the only option to the people who think they've got a choice is to vote for this guy. It's beyond ridiculous if you think we've got a choice in the actual world. Yeah.
Look, Cheeto Jesus is going to save us, dude.
Only the Tiger, the Frosty dude, he's got more chance, surely.
What, Cheetahs?